fresh from during the UN Ocean Conference in Nice, securing over 1.2 billion for blue economy initiatives. France is leading its world-class expertise to the one of the planet's most ambitious sustainability drives. The GCC, meanwhile, has pledged more than 30 billion in renewables, aims to net zero emission by 2050. In this panel, we will explore how the French know-how in hydrogen, nuclear, and green tech is powering the transformation and uncover the investment opportunities that will define our shared future. Please join me to welcome to the stage Julien Pouget, President for Middle East and North Africa Exploration and Production in Total Energies. Charles-Emmanuel de Beauregard, Head of Corporate and Institutional Banking in QNB. Dr. Fernando Diaz Lopez, Director for Climate and Earth Center in HEC Paris. Derek Rushgrove, Managing Director for Power Utilities in Europe, Middle East and Africa in Crédit Agricole. Maher El-Kaabi, Advisor to the Chairman and Independent Board Member for Esserkal Group in Dubai. Moderating this panel, the talented web journalist, editor in Arab News, Zeynas Bibo.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for joining us for today's panel discussion, Innovating for Sustainability, Managing Water, Waste and Energy in the Gulf. We have, as Daleen already announced it, an amazing lineup of speakers today across different industries. And so to begin tackling a big question, as nations race towards sustainability and achieving net zero targets, global strategies are increasingly converging. We have France's France 2030, Oman's Vision 2040, Saudi Arabia's Vision 2030, and of course, UAE's net zero targets by 2050, which all reflect a shared urgency but tremendous room for and opportunities for collaboration. Let's not forget that a few years back, or a couple of years back, the UAE hosted COP28, which placed the region on the map for global climate discourse. And so today, during this panel, we'll explore how France and the GCC are shaping a sustainable energy future, while spotlighting high-impact partnerships with perspectives from government, finance, academia, and the industry. I'd like to begin by tackling the policy and strategic outlook. Mr. Maher El-Kaabi, from your vantage point in government, where do we currently stand in the journey towards sustainable resource management in the Gulf, and what's next?
I think this is a predicament question for everybody in the nation globally, because managing resources are really challenging. However, I think more so in GCC, what you call nation, because we kind of pushed with a lot of consumerism from the Western world, and everybody is like becoming entitled in terms of consuming all the time. So I think this has been realized quite some time ago, and one of the three key things that we need to manage in terms of resources is water, to make sure that because of the scarcity of water we have in the GCC nationals as a GCC. Second is about waste management. We create a lot of waste because of huge incomes that you have then. And then about how do we transition in terms of the energy sources that we have. If we talk about water conservation, we've been working on it for about more than a decade and so. And how do we make sure that we reduce our water management, water resources that we have today? One of the staggering things I mentioned, one of the companies that we co-founded back in 1961, which is Dubai Electricity Water Authority, it's a public listed company now. If you look at the non-revenue water loss, or the water loss that we have today, back in 1988 it was about 42%. 2025, when they actually, or 2024, Q1 2025, when they submitted their financial results, it was about 4.2%. So that tells you how much of reduction has happened. Of course, what they also done, roughly 8 years ago, they wanted to make sure the entire country or entire city is on a smart grid. So you'll be able to understand from the data perspective how much of energy is required for various sectors. And those are very important. And probably we'll dwell into that when we talk about AI and how AI will become very helpful in doing urban planning clubbed with digital twins. Waste management is another challenge. I think, quite huge in waste producing countries, as we say. So one of the things we have done is to make sure that we have a clarity in role, working with our older partners. We instituted, first of all, a Circular Economy Council. The council was cabinetly approved in 2021, working with all the ministries that we have, Ministry of Economy, Ministry of Climate Change, Ministry of Industry, and Ministry of Energy as well. So I happen to sit on this council as well. So what we try to do is work with the policies across all the segments and all the sectors and all the players. So we bring government sectors, federal and local. We bring in private sectors. We bring academia, which is very important. And unfortunately, quite a lot of time they're being missed because of the R&D and so forth. So all the policies that we issue over there, we make sure that it's discussed either through a workshop. If it's a light policy, then we'll do it through a draft, and we take the opinion for the subject matter expert from the private sectors. So in the waste, we said, okay, the target would be that by 2027, nothing will go to landfill, because landfill is kind of a challenge to the nature itself. So we built one of the world's largest waste-to-energy plant, which is one of the plants behind our plant as well, which is one of the only plants we have in the Middle East, which we manage asset and waste. So one of the plants we have in managing a very important waste, which is the fat oil grease, which is production of the food establishment. So in the last 16 years since we had that plant, it's the only plant in the Middle East which does that today. And we've looked at a lot of, I would say, experiences before we built it back in 2009 globally. And then we had to perfect the technology, because when we brought the machinery from Germany, unfortunately, the machine broke down. Nothing to do with the German machinery, because they were strong, but I think the waste that we had are completely different than the European waste. So to cut the long story short, because of that plant, we were able to save 625 million liters of water in the last 15 years. So they tell you that these kind of things are happening quite a lot, and that waste is now actually put back into the economy for people to use it and so forth. An example of like these are many, but I think it's all about making sure that we set the policy correctly and why need to be clear what we need to do, along with all the stakeholders, and make sure that we collaborate with them.
Thank you so much. Now let's pivot to the private sector. Monsieur Julien Pouget, you lead the MENA operation for Total Energy. How do you see, basically today in a region balancing hydrocarbon wealth and green transition, how do oil and gas companies integrate renewables into their strategy and activities?
Thank you. So first, I would like to thank Business France for organizing this event and inviting us to join this panel. So you asked what are the oil and gas international companies doing in the field of renewables and new energies. And you may have seen that depending on the IOC, we call them IOC, International Oil Company, the approach of the challenge of energy transition is quite different. So here we'll speak mainly about what we at Total Energies are doing. When we decided in about 2020 to embark in our transformation, we decided to become not anymore an oil and gas company, but a multi-energy integrated company. And we decided to develop two pillars. The first pillar is oil and gas. This is what we have been doing for decades, 100 years, a bit more than 100 years now. And by the way, we were born in the region, in Iraq, so very close to GCC, 100 years ago. So we decided to go on developing this pillar, and we have always been very clear we'll develop oil and gas, and we grow in oil and gas. And we have a second pillar, which is electricity notably out of renewables, because we believe it will be a key part of energy transition, so a key part of the energy system of tomorrow. So it's a bit system A and system B, you know. System A is a system of today. It's mainly based on fossil fuels, More than 80% of the energy is coming from fossil fuels today, and we need this energy, and our economies are based on this system. But we need to build and further develop what we call System B, so the new energy system, clean energy, more affordable, cleaner. And this is what we are working on. And just to give you a figure, we are investing more or less out of the $17 billion we are investing every year. We are investing $5 billion per year in new energies. Another figure, when we decided to embark, so a few years ago, we had mainly one solar farm. Actually, it was in UAE. I think we built the first solar farm in the UAE, Shams. And then we decided to expand. And today, we have built and we operate 26 gigawatts of solar and wind plant. 26 gigawatts. So 1 gigawatt is more or less the power output of a standard medium-sized nuclear power station, so 26. And we aim at getting to about 100 terawatt hours produced, 100 gigawatt more or less, by end of the decade. So a huge, massive investment in growth of the renewable sector. Still with our two pillars, oil and gas, because it is a system, energy system of today, and electricity, many renewables, because we are contributing to build the system, the energy system for tomorrow.
Amazing. Thank you for your input. Now, it's great to hear the policy perspective and the industry perspective, but we need to finance the transition. So turning to our bankers on the panel today, and I think we have 2, 3 bankers, right? Mr. Derek Rushgrove, what is the financier's view of hydrogen, and how is net zero influencing financing decisions?
Okay, so thank you, Zina. Just to echo what Julian said, so a big thank you to Business France. It's a pleasure to contribute to this exchange. So first of all, 2 questions, very good questions. I'll address the hydrogen one first. You know, hydrogen, periodically it comes back with a bang, no pun intended. It feels a little bit like the buzz, the fizz has just gone a little bit right now, but that's perhaps not a bad thing. It means that we're back to serious sponsors, serious investors with serious opportunities. So look, as an institution, CACIB, we're firm believers in hydrogen. Hydrogen has a key role to play in terms of net zero. We're here to help our key clients, you know, as most banks. We mobilize to support our key clients, and there's one sitting right next to me. It's clear, I think now the buzz has gone, people are back to basically looking at applications which will focus on the hard-to-abate industries. So we're talking about ammonia, methanol refiners, and some of the new ones, so steel, synthetic fuels. This is where we see the immediate opportunities coming from, and this is where we're mobilizing to help our key clients assemble the financing for this. You know, the financier role, it's great to have a vision, and clearly net zero, that's a big vision. Our role is to be pragmatic and to help our key clients deliver in order to achieve that vision. And to deliver, we need to finance this. These are very expensive assets. So that is our role. We have a key role. Geographies, clearly, Middle East, very important, especially for green hydrogen. Look, Middle East, it has what's very important for green electricity, which is solar resource and wind resource. So we see a lot of onshore solar, very large scale. We see a lot of onshore wind as well. So clearly, these are the building blocks of a hydrogen sector. Just to finish on hydrogen before I address the second question, I actually canvassed the specialist team in the bank. I said, come on guys, just give me one catchphrase. And it was the phrase that they gave me, just to try and put this into real numbers, was if we could just decarbonize the existing use of hydrogen in Germany, we could say, the existing use of hydrogen only, we could save the equivalent of Germany's carbon emissions. So that's what's refocused, in our opinion, the sector on looking at the immediate task in hand, which is these hard-to-abate industries. Now, the second question was, how does net zero reverse back into financing decisions? Look, net zero is this huge vision, which is fantastic. We all have to have a vision. It translates into a bank-specific vision. So we ourselves, we impose, and I imagine we're not the only ones, we impose upon ourselves some very strict net zero trajectories. And clearly that reverses itself directly into the financing decisions that we take. So it means that we're very busy originating renewables sitting at the heart of the energy transition. Basically, it makes it more challenging for upstream oil and gas, for example. When you look at the carbon intensity of a loan book, that does reverse into it. It also makes it challenging sometimes for some of the other peripheral parts, you know. It's great to have this vision, but when you actually look at the nuts and bolts of when you start to have material volumes of grid-connected intermittent renewables, you do need some other parts to keep the lights on, you know, and that's where the focus becomes. And one of those parts is spinning reserve and peakers, so thermal peakers. And this is where sometimes there's a bit of a gap between vision and implementation. It's very difficult for a bank to book those thermal peakers because you never know how much they're going to get dispatched. But they're an essential part to keep the lights on, you know. So look, it reverses itself. Maybe reverses is not the right term. It's prevalent in every financing decision that's taken for the bank now. Voilà.
Amazing. Now, to complete the view, I have also a question for Monsieur Charles-Emmanuel de Beauregard. As a banker, have you seen a change or acceleration in the way Gulf countries develop their power, water, and energy projects, and what is at stake for the future?
Yeah, so the answer is clearly so. I think there was a turning point in 2018 where most of the countries from the GCC established a vision and a path to sustainability and made a very important announcement as to how they would meet their objectives. Basically, there were two aspects. One of them is to increase the share of renewable in their energy mix. And second, to reduce the electricity or power consumption per capita. All of them made these objectives public. Just as an illustration, and I'm talking under the control of Julien and Derek here, but I think in 2018, there was less than 1 gigawatt of installed capacity for renewable in the region. Now we are at 16, which I think says a lot, because clearly this ambition is not just on paper. They are doing it. And there was an acceleration of this ambition, which was announced in 2023, to, I would say, do even more in terms of, and I'm talking just about renewable here. I'm not talking about water or waste, but I think it's an important illustration to do even more on that front. Objective being by 2030 to reach 96 gigawatts. Is it a high ambition? Definitely. Are they going to achieve it? We all hope so. Is it doable in this time frame? We will see. But at least the trajectory is there. And all these countries are very committed to be very visible in terms of this sustainability trajectory. I would add as well that there is clearly more interest and traction on the sustainability topics compared to a few years ago. The local authorities have instilled this culture within the population, within the organizations. For instance, at QNB, we have a sustainability team which is extremely competent and which we did not have 6-7 years ago. These translate into, I would say, internal KPIs. We want to have more and more dialogue with our customers, with all the stakeholders on ESG topics. And as an institution, we also want to catch up and become as good a citizen on the ESG front as the big players like Crédit Agricole and others. So again, this is a trajectory, and I'm personally impressed to see how quick things are going in the region in that respect.
Thank you so much. Now, finance, technology, and policy are all significant, but we need the human capital. So now bringing in Dr. Diaz-Lopez to the conversation. In your view, how can academic institutions and leadership training programs contribute to building climate resilience in the Gulf?
Well, thank you for the question. Thank you to the organizers for having us for HEC Paris, HEC Paris, HEC Paris, Doha. It's a pleasure to be here. And of course, education, we all agree that education is a backbone of progress. It's just a coincidence that in this panel we come last. It's just nothing to do with the meaning of education. What I can tell is from the perspective of higher education. Of course, there are many forms of education, and tomorrow there will be a panel on education. But from higher education, and in particular from business management education, managing is quite interesting, the title, managing innovation, managing sustainability, managing water, managing waste, energy. And without management, there is no innovation. So there is no business planning, there is no finance models, there is no capacity building. And what we see is that traditionally, education from a management perspective has responded to government plans, to societal demands, and to business trends. But we live in an unprecedented and very complex world. You know, the example shared here testify that it's not easy to find solutions. It's not easy to, you know, to set up plans in motion or bring technology into action without having to do problem solving, without having to find what is the best alternative, what is the best scenario, what is the best today compared to what we had before. So the business management education world requires today more than ever new forms of collaboration. So if we were competitors before, today, well, that doesn't matter anymore because we ought to collaborate. If we were in different sides of the room where we different, you know, there's so many policy questions that already have an answer by entrepreneurial solutions, so we just don't meet one another. So what we are witnessing and what we see also in the Gulf region is that partnerships for thought leadership, partnerships for new programming, new educational and training programs, but also partnerships for innovation. Innovation understood as novel things that have an application are essential. Now, we at HEC, we lead a partnership called Business School for Climate Leadership together with INSEAD, Oxford, Cambridge, IMD, and we're 8 schools that traditionally we would compete. But in climate, we are together. So we have developed a thought leadership program. And there is something called Business School for Climate Leadership Middle East that involves the University of Qatar, the university, I think it's 9 universities in the region. And it's the same principle, is, you know, collaborating, co-creating, and identifying those pieces of challenges that together we find the solution overall. Now, what is different today and what is required? That's what we're doing in the region. We are the only non-American university in Qatar in partnership with the Qatar Foundation. We've been there for 15 years. But why is today different? Because we, of course, training people to become business managers. And we don't want them to become sustainability managers, but we want them to be able to work with a sustainability specialist, with a waste management specialist, with a water management specialist, and together, you know, using the strengths of both skill sets to find those solutions that are applicable in that moment, and with this future thinking and the future looking that we've been discussed. So there are many other schools in the region that do excellent things, and we are learning from our partners in the region as well. It's not that we have all of the knowledge. Well, yes, we're a very prestigious university or higher education institution in France and in Europe, and we're really good at doing business models, and we are really good at setting up business transformations. 25 of unicorns in France are created by HEC graduates. So we know a thing about setting up business, but we don't know the reality of the terrain. We don't have all of the knowledge. So these partnerships and these collaborations is very important. And just let me finish to start going back to something mentioned at the very beginning. An energy transition, the energy transition is a hybrid transition. The Gulf region understands it very well. France understands it very well. I did more of a career in the Netherlands. It's understood very well that you need the best of both worlds to be able to face the ecological and the climate crisis that we have today and turn it into opportunities. Now, there's a lot of skill sets. We have a lot of people in our graduate programs, not only in the region, but also here in France, that used to work in oil and gas. They used to work in heavy industries, in heavy to decarbonize industries, with the skill sets that they have and the skill set that they gain through sustainability training or thought leadership, purpose leadership training. We're doing that a lot in the region. We're running a custom program for Aramco on purpose leadership, for example. And that combination of new skill sets makes a difference in this hybrid transition that we're witnessing. So I go back to my original, saying that from a higher education and business management education, partnerships, programming, and new forms of innovation. That's at least what I can share with you all.
Merci beaucoup. Building on this point, I have a question for Monsieur Maher. Basically, how important is knowledge sharing and cross-border collaboration in accelerating this energy transition process?
Sure. I think before that, I still need to stress on the education because it's really undermined today. And given this is passionate for me as well, we keep on discussing climate matters at our levels all the time. We're missing something very important because we know if the climate matter is going to be here to stay, then we need to make sure that we teach our children. We teach the schooling system has to change and so forth. And I need to ask a post question. How many of you, if you can, please raise with raise of hands, actually teach your loved one and children at home about sustainability and climate change? Please prove me wrong, because every panel keynote I speak, it's always less than 5%. It's still not more than 5%, by the way. So I'm really disappointed, right? That tells you we keep on talking at our level, but we're not really teaching the children, and that's very important. And I've got a problem because I sit as a chairman of schools and I sit also on the board members of universities. The moment we teach the children these things, they go back home and they unlearn and come back completely zero, whatever knowledge we've taught them with. So it's a lot to do with ourselves. We need to make sure as parents, we need to change the generation of understanding. And that takes me as a good segue for the knowledge sharing and collaboration at governmental levels and country levels. Now, look at pandemics. That's an example for us to see. We sailed through, some countries managed very well, some could not, some were in denial. But those countries who actually collaborated together, they managed even better because that collaboration brought a lot. And if you look at some of the collaboration that we have today within UAE and GCC and France, Sorbonne University is one of them in UAE, which collaborate with Khalifa University and many other universities, where we do actually a lot of collaborative work in terms of sharing innovative ideas that we have today. I think UAE and France just recently finished a 3 high-level delegation official visits just in May, only just collaborating on the ideas that we have and cross-pollination of ideas. Even in February, there was a delegation by His Excellency Dr. Sultan Jaber, who's the Minister of Industry and Advanced Technologies, and which was co-chaired as well by the Total Energy Chairman and CEO, on how do we manage water conservation and reservation of water, and there was an MOU signed over there. But then takes us to the next point. How do we come up and do R&D? Now, it's very important that you do R&D for your respective countries. But imagine the power when you share the R&D results and the theme of that thing with across region and countries, because power have become even much, much more. And that's what's happening between, I would say really a lot between France and the GCC countries and the UAE in particular as well. What's very important as well is how do we collaborate on policy mainframes? That's very, very important. Today, if you look at the world, is fragmented in many policy forms. Yes, there is alignment on 2050. That's not a problem. But imagine the 2050 keeps on changing all the time. US pulled back from the Paris Agreement twice. If you look at some of the European countries, have different alignments over there. So it's important that we also make sure that we have policy alignment, and that's happening within countries. The other important thing I need to introduce is something I talked about in COP28 in one of the panels, and I'm not sure if the government picked it up, and that's why we have a challenge on that thing, is how do we introduce new technologies, machine learning, predictive model, and AI models that whenever we do a policy, see the impact of the policy on society, on the planet, and economical factors. And just a few months ago, it seems to be they picked up my talk because I was talking in the UAE pavilion over there. And now the UAE has launched that AI model, predictive model, saying that, okay, we've launched these policies. What is the impact of this policy on the 3 Ps? Profit, planet, people. And of course, UAE is very well known that whenever the policies are there, they're not really, what do you call, written in stone. They're constantly revised and constantly in. And taking that experience and sharing it with other people, I think the collaboration and the cooperation work becomes then paramount in that perspective.
Thank you so much. Shifting back to Mr. Julien Pouget, how much do you invest in R&D, building on what was shared earlier, and basically, what's the way forward?
Thank you. First, to your point, Maya, regarding education, I have to say that I don't face this problem. At home, my 2 daughters are well aware of climate change. Yeah, I raise my hand. And sometimes it leads to a bit of challenging discussion, you know, when you are working for a former oil and gas company, now multi-energy integrated company. But this is where we can explain that transition cannot be done in one day. And to your point too, you know, what we do to improve our impact on climate change is 2 things. First, we change the product we sell, so we invest in renewables. I already spoke about it, but just I did not mention that we also built the first large-scale solar plant in Qatar, 800 megawatts, Al-Qarsa. We also are currently building, it's not in the region, but it's close, the first giant solar plant, 1.2 gigawatt in Iraq, and I can tell you, not a lot of people are building solar plant and financing solar plant in Iraq, but if you want, it's open. So it's the type of things we are doing, but we are also producing with much lower intensity all our products and the products of our first pillar in the oil and gas. And here I want to mention an example which is very close to R&D. We are building one of the first in Oman, one of the first fully electrified LNG liquefaction plant. So everything is electrified. It's entirely fed with renewable electricity, so zero carbon electricity. And with that, we managed to reduce by a factor of 10 the emission intensity. So the intensity of the emissions divided by the produce we liquefy by a factor of 10. So from 30 kilograms per barrel to down to less than 3 kilograms per barrel. So you see, it's exactly what we can do when we work on innovation. We put it in action and we strongly reduce our emissions. And with that, with this type of project, with this type of approach, we aim at being net zero by 2050, together with society, because we cannot be net zero. You know, we produce the energy that is used by the people, so we have to adjust to society. But together with society, we plan to be net zero by 2050. And you can see it's based on real significant change. And here I'm not speaking of a very small few $1 million project. It's more than 1.5 billion that we are investing in this project in order to bring LNG actually to the marine industry. So it's another innovation of this project. LNG can be used as a bunkering fuel for shipping industry, and this marine industry then can reduce its emission very concretely by more than 20%, which is huge. They are fighting a lot to reduce their emissions. So you see that with such type of project, we can reduce very significantly emissions, and maybe I could convince my neighbor to invest in this type of projects, because obviously this type of innovative projects require a lot of financing. We are putting 17 billion capex, and out of which 5 in new energy projects every year, but obviously we are using financing from banks and other institutions in order to support the financing of this project. I know I don't need to convince Charles-Emmanuel, but you are contributing already to our renewables portfolio at CACIB. So this is what we are doing, and just to your last question, we are investing every year about $1 billion in R&D, out of which 68% is dedicated to developing the new energy systems. And as an example, we have a large R&D center in Qatar where we develop the products for solar, but also for upstream, how to reduce emissions and improve sustainability.
Thank you. I think Derek wanted to intervene, maybe on the question of how governments ensure their procurement regimes remain attractive for international lenders.
Sure, thank you, Tina. It was starting to get slightly uncomfortable here, so I'm glad to take a question. Well, first of all, before answering the question directly, first of all, just to put some numbers on this, because it's what we do, we like numbers. A typical, and there's no typical, but a typical renewable development in the Middle East, it's in the range of $1 billion, you know? So it's $1 billion, it's quite a lot. And these assets, they're basically, they have a long life, so they're going to generate power, desal water, storage, we start to see now. They're going to operate for 15, 20, 25 plus years. So that presents two dilemmas. First of all, to directly address your question, how can governments make this attractive? Investors, you know, this is another type of PPP, public-private partnership. Investors need to have the confidence that their investment will indeed generate those revenues over the life of the asset. So that's generally given, you know, the regimes that are all developed in all of the GCC countries, they're pretty good, they're pretty robust now. And it's, look, we're 30 plus years into the independent power producer story within the region. Now, from a bank perspective, we're not here to give any advice in terms of what's good and what isn't. Clearly, what's there at the moment, it works. You know, there's massive liquidity in the local bank market at the moment. So all of the regimes are able to attract lots of bank capital to support the private investors who are putting cash into these assets. Now, from an international bank perspective, you know, it's all about matching liabilities with assets. These are long-term assets, and they demand a long-term financing. For the international banks, and especially for the Western European banks, this is where the dollar dilemma starts to be a bit tricky. You know, we like mobilizing short-term dollars. We're quite sophisticated, so we can understand a project. We can look at the construction risk. We can mobilize big amounts of capital to get these assets developed and built. But then the eternal dilemma becomes, well, where's the natural home for the financing of these assets once they're built, once they're operating? It's not Western European banks. We're not conceived to hold 25-year paper, dollar paper, especially on our balance sheets. And this is where we see in the region, and the different jurisdictions are at different stages. we see some that are really taking the step forward in terms of making the capital markets the natural home for this paper, for assets that are operating, that are working. The question for banks is, how much confidence do we have that that mechanism will indeed enable that recycling of our balance sheet to get the long-term dollar exposure off our balance sheet and into the capital markets where its natural home is. We start to see a lot of movement. Again, as of today, there's so much liquidity in the region. You know, it's quite correlated to oil prices, and it's absolutely normal. They don't need to engineer too much these refinancing mechanics. We all know markets are cyclical, especially commodity markets. At some point, we're watching, we're following very closely, and as soon as we start to see mechanics, templates that give us that comfort of the refinancing, that's when we'll start to mobilize in the jurisdictions that these guys are active in. Voilà.
Thank you so much. I think we still have a few minutes before we wrap up, but I still want to take final points from Monsieur Charles-Emmanuel, if you have maybe a point to add in terms of liquidity in the region, and for wrapping up with Dr. Fernando. Thank you.
Thank you, Zena. Actually, Derek said it all. A few observations, if I may, and I totally agree with what you said. If we do, I mean, we're people of numbers, figures. If we do a quick back-of-the-envelope calculation, for the renewable sector only, if the GCC, they want to reach this famous 96 gigawatt in the next 5 years, it means more or less, a total capex of between 50 to 60, 70 billion. This is massive. These countries, a long time ago, they used to pay for this capex out of their budget. I mean, but they set up a long time ago a framework for investors to come and finance this project as sponsors, and that's what Total and other big players are doing. It means that potentially the region will need 10, 15 billion of equity just for renewable projects in the next 5 years. That's a lot. And of course, these sponsors, they need to sit down with their management, with their investment committee, and say, okay, does it make sense for me to put this big amount in this country? And of course, everybody knows what's going on at the moment. Let's hope that the dust settles soon. But in my opinion, I really hope that the Gulf will remain a very attractive destination for equity investors. This also raised the question on the financing, because we've talked about equity, but of course the sponsors, they need to find lenders. International banks like Crédit Agricole have been very active in the region for a very long time, and as mentioned by Derek, regional banks are also increasingly liquid and willing to support. Now, reality is that the sky is not the limit in terms of the amount of financing you can put on the table, and all the big players, international players or regional players, are, in my opinion, going to be increasingly selective on the projects they want to finance. They will pay a very strong attention to who the sponsors are, who the off-takers are when they are off-takers, and also a much stronger focus will be put as well, and this is what we were discussing a few minutes ago, on the sustainability aspects of these investments.
Super, merci beaucoup. Dr. Fernando, to wrap up, how can educational institutions support the development of climate-resilient societies and workforces?
Thank you. Thank you. Here I'm going to take my academic hat, and of course this is important when we talk about skills development and competences. The previous panel was talking about that. in terms of AI, and AI is an enabler of, you name it, health, sustainability, education, etc. But climate resilience is, if we are to understand it well, as defined by the IPCC, or in French, the GIEC, it is a state, it's a goal, so it is the capacity of interconnected economic, social, and environmental systems to resist to external shocks, meaning climate events, hazardous events. So if you ask insurance, and if you are your insurance colleagues, not only the insurance sector, but the reinsurance sector today has the most advanced methodologies to identify risks and to do long-term planning, and they're actually worried about the amount of money they have to pay back. It's not only that the investment and the long-term investment is there, but the amount of insurance and reinsurance that is needed today, because 20 years ago we didn't do climate resilience planning. 20, 30 years ago we didn't do, we didn't anticipate if technology would work or not. So climate resilience becomes that imperative, and then managing water, waste, and energy in the Gulf, in a region that is, by definition, is very advanced in climate resilience, it has a lot of lessons to teach to the rest of the world, and to Europe and to France in particular. Now, here in France, we have one of the most advanced circular economy policies in the world. Here the right to repair is guaranteed, the right to reuse. So combining benefits from both worlds, things sound exciting, but again, skill development, the right skill development, it is what we as educators, higher education, but not only because we are training future leaders, but we work with corporate partners, we work with governments in training, in changing or adding that element of skill sets that are required. Now, just to give you an element of how and what this means, according to LinkedIn 2024 Green Skills Report, we need to increase in a twofold, and some of us would say it would take nearly 2 generations, 1.8 generations to do that, the green labor force globally. Good news, in the top 10 of countries demanding and requiring green skills, in the top 10 is France, but also some of the Gulf region partners, Emirates in particular, it's in top 3. Just behind the UK and ahead of Switzerland, for example. So the region is requiring green skills. However, if we don't invest into reskilling and skill development and competence building, according to this report, the gap will go to 101% by 2050. That means that we can do long-term planning, we can do scenario planning, we can try to mitigate risk, finance, technology, etc. But if we don't invest in skill development at all levels, of course we are talking about higher education from my point of view, but it becomes an imperative. But it's also an opportunity. So it is an opportunity. That's the mission that my institute within HEC has, the Sustainability Organization Institute. We've been working really hard in the last 5 years to increase the content of sustainability-related topics 30% across all of our curricula. And we know that other schools are doing the same. Is it enough? No. But it's a major change for a well-established educational system. Now, the Gulf region has the opportunity to innovate in education and to basically handpick the skills and the competencies, the time frame that you require. So I would like to leave it there, but of course skill development, competences, climate resilience as a goal, managing water, waste and energy, innovating and promoting sustainable education and sustainable management as the mechanisms to do it.
Merci beaucoup. Thank you so much for all our panelists today for your insightful contributions. And Miriam, to be just on time, we're wrapping up. I think you're happy now. Basically, what's clear today in this question of sustainability is not that we're not trying to answer if or how, but how smart we can find solutions while bringing in clear policies, strategic financing, and of course, human capital development and academia. And thank you all for all our audience today for being with us till now. And we look forward to a continued dialogue and action, certainly beyond this room. Thank you so much.